Welcome back to Website and TV. I'm Gemma Houghton. Today I'm joined by Lefto, who's Global SEO at Trivago, and we're going to be discussing international SEO, specifically in the travel sector. Hi Lefto, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So travel is obviously a very competitive sector with a lot of competition for SERP results, placings. What are the biggest challenges of trying to do SEO for a travel site?
Well, it's the entire ecosystem as it is itself, right? That's because there are several different players in that, let's call it market, right? You have all those online travel agents, the big names, Expedia, Priceline, all those groups, right? You also have the big hotel chains. You have the meta searches. You have also independent hotels that are competing, and then you also have affiliates, right?
Yeah.
So there is it's very diverse in terms of how many people are or what kind of websites are trying to get a little bit of that pie. But also at the same time you have all these changes that are coming from Google's side in terms of how the service looks like, what kind of features are rolling out, maybe what kind of algorithmic updates are happening, and that influence SEO somehow makes it more difficult, but also at the same time makes more fun. Because it's like, trying to find some ways around to work with that. You also have the trends that things are changing during the years. We saw like for the last 5 years how the mobile devices are increased, right? And that also at the same time brings some changes in terms of how the user behaves. And also those changes reflect to how you need to format your website, maybe strategies you need to change in order to, let's say, maintain this growth that you have or keep increasing it. Also, you have some changes that are happening, see, for example, the voice search that's coming. That's something big, but people are trying to find ways around that or try to see how they can work with it. But all of that, it's like a live organism that's developing, evolving, and keeps its chance over there.
Yeah, which is why it's so difficult, because there are always things changing, and it's I guess the key thing is that you have to always be keeping up to date with what's going on, have a team that's able to experiment and to try new things in order to do that. So you mentioned obviously these changes, and there is examples like position zero, which has become increasingly important, the carousels, which again for travel is something we've seen increasing. How do you, how from an SEO perspective, optimize for these different things? How do you make sure you appear where all the possible places you can?
I think it's also important before we jump to the topic of how to optimize it. It's like to do some kind of sanity check. Do we need to optimize? Do we need to invest on that? Does it make sense? Are we gonna, let's say, bring more people on board on the website? Is that gonna this time that we're gonna spend over there to optimize those stuff, are they gonna pay back or not? So from that perspective, if you already identified that there is some, let's say, potential to that, and you're already ranking in the first page, then it makes sense to go and say, okay, let's exploring the different approach for it.
Yeah.
We saw that Google is having different layouts for this position zero. You can have the listing, you can have the paragraphs, you can have everything. Everything starts, I think, with try to play around with the code that you're having, meaning like how you can structure on the back end the areas where you're having your content.
Yeah.
Because we saw that Google is, let's say, favoring somehow all those, I would say, kind of like old school HTML that we were having, like back to the 90s or 2000, where table formats, listings, orders, and stuff like that. So that's going to be the first thing. Try to work around with the formatting of the code, see if things are changing. Then also, for sure, you need to start thinking or researching what kind of questions my users are searching, how to, where to, those kind of stuff, and see how you can incorporate that within your content. It's a test, continuous test that you have to do. If that thing works, great, but I think it's also very important, since it's an opportunity, can be also a threat at the same time. Because if you happen to give every single question out there directly, right, what's the reason for the user to come to your website? Just because the answer it says over there, it's happy, it's end of story. But I think it's a huge opportunity for many players and for everyone. If you have more visibility on the SERP, assume that you somehow rank on the 10th position, right?
Yeah.
And it all takes a couple of tweaks to appear in the position zero, whatever. It's an easier win, whereas you will have to fight more in terms of, let's do some on-site optimization, some technical change to improve your speed, some link building and stuff, in order to climb the ladder and go.
So So it's about identifying where the biggest gains could come from that change. If you're already in the first position, perhaps that's not the best thing to do.
It could be, but it also could, like if you have on the first position, and also the position 0, you can push your competitors down. So more visibility for you, especially if it's like mobile.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, it's all about experimentation and understanding that not just doing things for the sake of it, making sure that you can see your business improve.
Definitely not. I've seen there was some discussions going. Many SEOs just consider like, okay, I'm gonna do that, and hell yeah, I achieved that. But it's much more like an ego playing a game over there, because it's something cool to have, but doesn't really have a meaning for you. Do you really need that? Or let's say you're distracting yourself that moment, and you're focused on something else, and you're leaving all the big, let's say, projects that are going to drive the revenue stuff aside, just because it's a cool thing to have.
And it's a fad,
So I think some sanity check is something that needs to be considered, to be done.
So we're talking about travel being competitive and the challenges that come with that. There are additional challenges that come into play when you're dealing with different languages and different countries, which of course you are at Trivago. What do you think are the most important factors to really focus on and be aware of when you are dealing with international SEO?
Yeah, true. True, it's consistency, first one. It's also how you can scale things up in an efficient way. Things can, let's say, work even if you don't have to be there. So I think in overall, there might be some split that you need to do between global and local. Some global approach that you are going to follow because, let's say, there are some other requirements to the backend and that dictate that you need to go over there, but also the local, where you come to the point that you need to localize all the different aspects of your website to make it more meaningful also for the user. Because if not, what's the point of having, let's say, an international presence everywhere if you have the same, let's say, even a wording or a message that you're communicating. So that's important. To do that, I think, though, there needs to be in place some kind of framework, specific processes that can pinpoint the next steps, so they can help people understand what they're doing and why. And within that, I think also it's important for them to see the value they generate afterwards, because that can help create some kind of momentum and scale things up even faster, because you get to see the value over there, right?
Yeah, and that is the problem. Like you say, you kind of do need this global and local approach. Yeah. You need to have the local expertise, but you have to have some control at global level to make sure you have this consistency. How do you make sure that that is followed in all the different markets? Because if you've got local teams, they all want to do things in a slightly different way. What are the things you can put in place to maintain that consistency?
A process. I think, unfortunately, the answer to that, or fortunately, the answer to that is process. If you have a very specific guidelines from the beginning of how things needs to be done and for what reason, if you make it very clear,
explain
I think,
more,
educate. Maybe that would be even better. Educate the people why some stuff needs to be done in a particular way. Then people get to understand better and see the whole picture. And it's not going to be what you said. Maybe they want to do something else. They might want to do something else, but following the process, they're going to come back, communicate, and give you even better, let's say, feedback.
Yeah.
So you can rework your approach, improve it, and scale it up to more teams if you, let's say, want to expand later.
So it's all about collaboration. It's not just feeding things from the global into the local. It's also learning from them, because those are learnings you could share elsewhere.
It's true, because you don't get to know the language, right?
Yeah.
You don't get to know the whatever is happening to that market. You might speak English, but you have no idea what's happening in Ireland or what's happening in Australia. What's the differences between them? Also in terms of cultural differences, wording, all the rest of the stuff. It can be, though, somehow helpful from a global perspective, just because you get to see all that volume from the keyword research and stuff that you're doing, to feed information to them. So, for example, you might get to have the targeting specific keywords, but the search volume can indicate that the synonym has much more search volume in one particular region or one particular country. So you just fit that in, and people can work with those stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it feels also like it's very much a team approach, and you're using everybody's expertise and knowledge to get the best results.
Yeah.
So then another factor to fit into this, there's so many different components really with the international, is the translation side of things. And of course, again, with the big site where there's a lot of new content regularly, an effective kind of translation workflow is absolutely essential. How do you manage that, and how do you make sure that fits with the SEO and doesn't works with it, not against it.
Well, transcendence, as you said, it's very important for every website, for every organization that wants to have an international presence out there. I think it's and what I've seen is like structure the teams, or let's say structure the workflows based on different components of the website, can improve the efficiency that you're going to have. It streamlines the process. So it's coming naturally afterwards for people to follow up with what kind of stuff they need to work on, because you already know that, in the pipeline there's something that's coming in. Maybe it's a new feature or snippets that need to change, right? Yeah. But they are already aware of that because of the process that you're having. So fitting those kind of, let's say, let's phrase it, to having better structure or organizing your workflows, you can kind of guarantee the final outcome. Of course, there is a lot of sanity checks that need to be performed in the very end. But and how it fits in SEO, it's like the SEO can get to the point that it can help to quantify the outcome of all those efforts. I mean, it's great to, not great, it's needed to perform the translation, right? For whatever different reasons. It might be for better rankings, might be for user engagement, might be for conversion optimization, might be for everything. But you might have the user metrics over there, but in reality, everyone's looking after maybe the revenue, maybe the money. So SEO can help you come to the point to quantify all this, let's say, man hours that you invested for translations and stuff like that. And also can help you, as I said before, to better optimize your translations based on what you've seen from either global level, but from your keyword research, where to focus on and how to address that. It just combines everything together, I think.
Yeah, and like with everything, the more that everything can work together and all be working towards the same goal, the more success you're going to have. And then we also have to talk about content, because there's a lot of talk around content in SEO now, and it's very important to be having this new content and, like you said earlier, answering questions that people are interested in. How do you approach the concept of content creation? What factors do you take into account when deciding which content to create, and how does, again, that fit with the overall SEO approach?
Well, it's getting bigger as a topic for many reasons, whether it's position zero, whether it's to somehow trying to be up to date with what Google is changing in the algorithms, and that's mainly the why it got so big in the last 10 years as the king of whatever they call it. So I think it's for that, it doesn't make sense to go out there and become the next content create machine for write content just for the sake of writing. It needs to serve a purpose, and that purpose is coming directly from what, let's say, from the channel that you want to first address, right? If you want to create content for the improve your conversion optimization, it's fine, but you wouldn't need that many guidelines from SEO perspective. If you want to have content for your email marketing efforts, also for SEM, it's different. But if you want to have content for SEO, you want to rank better, it's important to go through continuous testing, because the test can help you identify which content types perform better for you, for all the different user metrics or for all the different Google metrics that you want to focus, right? Rankings, visits, user engagement, time on site, bounce rate, and whatsoever. And that can bring more clarity to the whole, let's say, content strategy that you're gonna create in the very end.
So you have to be prepared to spend some time experimenting.
Otherwise it's like sitting to the moon, and maybe we're gonna land among the stars somehow and hope for the best. It's not gonna be like it's not gonna be neither helpful but neither efficiently or spending your resources, because in the very end it's investment. Someone's gonna write for that, someone's gonna read for that. And if it's not appealing, it's not useful to the user, that's gonna reflect to all the rest of the user metrics, then can be like a snowball effect, and I don't know, maybe you're gonna lose ranks because it's the content that you end up writing is a bunch of junk, nothing.
And it really goes back to the point we made at the beginning, which is just don't do things for the sake of it. Don't try and appear everywhere. Don't just create content just so you've got content. Make sure you're creating something that's relevant.
I believe doing all those tests from the beginning before you come to the point and say, here's my strategy, is going to help you identify which are the, let's say, where your opportunities are. And it can help you focus better, and in the very end, you're going to be able to, let's say, benchmark your final outcome with what you had projected and what you were calculating of, the potential outcome in terms of revenue, right? So whatever you're focusing on.
Yeah, and I think it's the main thing is that everybody can't do everything. Most businesses don't have the resources to try everything, so you really do have to understand where you can get the most gains,
It can be like for B2B business, the main value comes from the FAQ that you're having, or for the manuals that they're publishing out there. It might be that it comes from, from the stories that they're publishing of how their users or of how their customers make use of their product, and they're ending up educating also the public, and because otherwise if you're just writing articles, how to, where to, all those stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of those.
Just because you're targeting all those keywords, everyone's writing that, but what's so unique that you're...
Yeah, what's going to make that person click and then stay and then come back.
Exactly.
Yeah, right. Well, there's loads of really good tips there, and it was really interesting to talk to you, so thanks very much for talking to us.
Thank you.